Well, I've got this habit, and I feel like we've been talking a little bit about diversity in publishing here and
Okay.
there, and certainly what you're doing specifically. But obviously, the industry as a whole, which I now demand that you answer for, no. But the industry as a whole does not have the best track record with diversity in publishing. I don't think I'm revealing or spilling any tea as I say that. I think that's pretty established. Obviously, the world, as I like to think, optimistically, kind of sort of inching in the right direction, at least in terms of diversity in our stories. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but we're closer. We didn't have a Black Panther movie 20 years ago. We're moving.
I must have spent $200 seeing that movie in theaters. Like I
How many times
watched
did
it
you see it?
so many. I probably saw it. I don't know how to count. I don't know if it actually added up to $200. Like probably 8 times, 8 to 10 times in theaters. And I also saw Thor Ragnarok probably just as much, if not a little less. Those are like the best Marvel movies of the franchise, I feel, for me. That's just my opinion. They're just fun.
I love both of those movies.
And, they are both directed by men of color. So
That's, I mean, you know.
a little different vibe up in there.
So all that preamble to say, what are you seeing publishing doing right, and what does publishing still need to do to continue to improve?
Well, I will say I really enjoy and am incentivized and energized by how many young, and I don't necessarily mean an age, but it has correlated with age, but newer editors and agents who are people of color, who are vocal about the types of books that they want to get published and the types that they think are a little bit like, we've dated. It's the thing is, like, we're not going to have more diverse books in terms of inclusivity of different races and sexualities and identities and backgrounds unless publishing professionals themselves reflect that. Because you can have all of these writers come up all day, but if Jerry, who grew up in Pennsylvania in 1970, is looking at this thing, he's only going to see it from that lens, right? It's, you hear this all the time. It's like, I don't connect with this story. And it's like, I think that's a line. I mean, in general, I don't feel too much emotional connection with that, because I think it's just one of the ways that we are able to codify that feeling of not connecting with a book. But I also understand that it could just be like, oh, me from my position and my background can't understand the validity of your story from your perspective and your background. So I feel like this is kind of being slowly overturned in the fact that more people of color are being hired in editing positions and in marketing positions, not nearly enough, but in numbers that I feel like we will be seeing greater change in the next coming of years. And we've already seen it, this many books by people of color were not published in 2013. I think when We Need a Diverse Book started, is that the year? And that was such a great initiative that got publishing in professionals together in order to organize in an effective way. But every year I see more and more books that wouldn't have been published in 2011 being published today. Is it earlier this year, a book with the first non-binary character written by a non-binary author was published 2020.
That just happened this year?
Mm-hmm. It's
well, better late than never, I guess. But come on, publishing.
Yeah, but I think it's so interesting to me. But then again, it's just because, so for me as a queer Black, biracial woman, I want to see stories that have, people, and this is very individual. I'm not saying other people don't want to see this, but I want to see stories that reflect the people that I know. I want to that reflect me and people that I know that I've grown up with. And for that very basis, I look for stories like that. If you kind of, you have to think of it that other editors are also from that thing. They're like, oh, I grew up in a maze. I really want stories about mazes, like that really bring that to life. And it's like, okay, but now it's like you have to understand that the world is bigger than that maze. And you have to realize that you can't compare everything to that maze. I hope that. So anyway,
it's a very apt metaphor. I like it.
Yes. It's slow work. It's hard work. I saw this quote yesterday. I think I retweeted it. It's just like a lot of people have never known what it's like to infiltrate a hostile work environment, a hostile environment to make it better or something like that. And that's kind of publishing. It's just the fact that it might seem that nothing is happening behind the scenes, but there are, diversity initiatives in terms of, editorial boards coming out and saying, we need to know more. What do we need to work on? Stuff like that. So that has been happening. Even if, couriers are not privy to that information just from like Twitter or just general sense of the industry, it is happening and these conversations are happening. I want them to have it happening more, but publishing is a freaking dinosaur. You gotta take the knocks and keep going.
Well, publishing gets together tomorrow, and they say, Kiki, we've been listening to the Middle Grade Ninja podcast as we do each and every week, because I imagine all the publishing stops every time a new episode drops. That makes sense. And they say, after listening to you, we've decided you clearly should be in charge of all the publishing. You have all the power in the world. How do we make publishing better?
Be gay, do crime. I don't know. I think you're really smart because you put your podcast out on summer Fridays when everybody has the time to listen to podcasts. Honestly, that's what it is. It's just like everything that I watch and that I read, I'm like, this would be so much better if it was queer or if it was Black or if it had more perspectives than just, the one that we are used to and the one that we've seen. And I really am just like, it is that simple. It's literally that simple. Just publish these stories. Give them your money. But, I guess I don't have like the pipeline to the CEO of like everything to be like, sometimes I just feel like a lot of real people in those positions are really removed from the day-to-day operations and like, they're kind of like in their own little rich bubble of richness.
No, it's a fair criticism, I think. That's been one of the long running problems with publishing is so much of it is internship based, which means you have to be able to live in Manhattan and work a job for which you do not receive money.
Well, look,
that kind of self-selects.
Honestly, I did. So like I said, I'm from New York. I'm from upstate New York, but my dad's family lives in Brooklyn. So I've always been, and I mean, yeah, I did move out to the city on my own after I left college, but that was because my family was there and I didn't do anything on my own is basically what I'm trying to get. So I couldn't imagine. I have other friends who had like difficult times. It took many years to get into the internship, and even though it just sucks. It's like kind of like again, you have to be available to jump right in right away and be able to like subsist on like I was on food stamps. All right, I was on food stamps for like a few years, working my little part-time jobs. And
was a park ranger and a literary agent. Like you said, you had one other job at the time.
Oh yeah, so I also was working concessions at this theater. It was like that was run by the Catholic Diocese of New York. Okay, I don't know how dioceses work, but that was the theater that I was working at. I also worked. I did catering for a little while. I served. Is it tapas? I served hors hors d'oeuvres to Christina Ricci. That was cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just watched Sleepy Hollow 2 nights ago.
Oh my God, love Sleepy Hollow.
I'd forgotten, like, there's like literally 7 characters in to see my fainting in that movie. I'd forgotten.
Yes, I stood next to Martha Stewart and thought she was Hillary Clinton. So that was fun. It's really, I've done some really interesting jobs. But it's just like, oh, darn. I mean, the hustle is not for everyone, and it shouldn't be for everyone, you know? You should be able to maintain a decent life in an entry-level position or like internship, but, you know, maybe everyone should read The Devil Wears Prada again and really sink that story in, you know? We shouldn't be slaves to the industry. Okay, that was like anti-capitalist speech for the day.
I was just thinking of somewhere there's a senator or a congressman planning to make a speech about 3 jobs and working as hard as you possibly can. Isn't that the spirit, the noble American?
Yeah,
no,
okay,
pay people.
If that's true, you'd be working for much less. That's the thing that kills me. Like, you're a public servant, but you're living above everybody else that your constituents. Like, how does that make sense? I want to know. But I'm not, look, I don't know anything about politics or how it works. So I'm uninformed.
I can get you in charge of all the publishing. You have to go on a different podcast to be in charge of politics.
I wouldn't. But then I just want to be clear that I couldn't be part of the organization, but I will be the mouthpiece. I'll be the spokesperson. I don't want to be involved with any of how things are run or what people come up with. That just seems like a lot of pressure right now.
I'd just like to be this isn't good, do better person.
I want to be the Scooby or the Shaggy of the group, not the Freddy or the Daphne.